Yes or no?
Title.
Hmm?
Other than the title.
Right. You have any knowledge of what this is about? Ger Toshav, Ger? Anything?
I mean, I know the concepts, but
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where you're going to go with it.
Yeah. All right. We'll find out. All right. So I'm gonna assume that nobody knows anything, and we're gonna build up from scratch.
Okay.
What's that feel? It's a shame to let a hot cup of coffee go this. All right. Last step is how do we start? Let me get this thing. I want to introduce it for the video's sake.
Is it on?
What should we call this for the video? Imagine if you're in YouTube land. What do you want? What would this be?
The well, we're going to include.
I mean, let me tell you what we're going to do. This is off the video record, right? According to what I have here, what's what we're going to do. I'm gonna introduce the book that I've written with my co-author, World of the Year. I have my copy here, my personal copy. Explain the gist of that. I'll figure out as I'm lecturing how I'm going to transition into Rabbi Lazer Brody, Rabbi Shalom Arush, and the problems that arise in this field. And then based on time, we'll see what to do. But I have what the class was billed as: Rabbi Nachman, Ger, and Vilna Gaon Ger, and then we can bring in Chabad, Lubavitch Ger at the same time. So how that actually gets woven, we'll see.
Okay.
The point is Ger education, since I'm here, and why not? I have one book for sale. I'm going to be going to South Africa in another couple of days, which is a whole week-long lecture tour there. So I brought some books with me for that, so I can't bring too many, but I brought one here. If anybody else wants it, I have my tablet, and I can direct you online where to go. One more cup of coffee.
To me, yeah, I thought it was a convert.
What's that?
I thought Gare was a convert.
Everybody thinks that. That's why we're here. I mean, we can do it. I usually do a monologue when I teach, but you guys want an interactive discussion? It's up to you. To show of hands.
Yeah. People.
You guys all want to be able to interact
Well,
and talk?
we're all really gay and really.
That's also true. 100%. So all right, so it'll be interactive. I'm not gonna go into my whole shtick. It'll be like my online classes where I bring people in. So, okay, you ready?
It's on.
Oh, it is on.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
But you have your coffee.
We'll be editing that out.
Or the coffee cups and
All right. With that said, let's start. Okay. So for those that don't know, or you should know since you're here, my name is Rabbi David Katz. It's a lot of the things in my life come with a confusion, namely Ger. Like, is it convert? Is it this? Is it that? So a lot of people today ask me where I'm from, and my answer in classic my Mazel style, I don't know, because I've been from Spot for 15 years, and a couple of days ago I moved to Modin. So right before the trip, so it's kind of awkward to say I'm from Modin when I'm kind of not. I've been in Modin for about 10 hours my entire life. But technically I'm from Modin, which is not really true all the way. I'm from Sfat. But then again, I'm not. So that's how that works. So for argument's sake, I am from Sfat. Until further notice, I'll be presenting myself as from Modin. In Sfat, I got there as a young bacher in yeshiva, Bal Tshuva. And I met my glorious co-author, Chaim Klorfin, when I was a young guy. I was friends with his son, and we had nothing to do with Ger or any of these things. He actually wrote the flagship Noahide book back in the 80s with a bracha from the Lubavitch Rabbi called Path of the Righteous Gentile. Anybody hear that? That book? No? It's the most referred to book in the Noahide world until where we're at now, which is also why this topic in shiur is a bit controversial, because until recently that book was the official book. Chabad recommended to everybody. Your friend, Rabbi Simon?
Yeah.
He told me he recommends it to everybody that he runs into, and worldwide it has been traditionally the recommended book. By the way, do we need time constraints, or what are we holding?
Well,
We're good?
So, about another hour is okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
So until then, I take a lot of rabbit trails, so follow along. They're not too hard to follow. In this generation, call it the internet generation, industrial age, what they call it now, 4.0. It's all different, and whatever genre you're in, obviously you've probably experienced the changes and the developments that are coming upon us very suddenly. And one of them is the Noahide world. When Chaim wrote Path to the Righteous Gentile, I think in 1984, to have a correspondence with a Noahide meant putting a stamp on an envelope and waiting 3 months for a return, and then you had the kind of this awkward correspondence, which may be cultivated in a trip to Jerusalem once out of every however many students. It wasn't very practical, obviously, so the growth was very small. They were around the world, but it was. I mean, I remember in yeshiva, it was like a joke. The Noahides, there's like 3 of them on the whole planet. That's what we thought. Everyone else probably thought that also. But with the internet era, rapid growth, obviously, right? Facebook, there's groups, the virtual classrooms where you can. Obviously, we don't need to get into that. I mean, it's obvious. So it spiked, and in the middle of the 2000s, Chabad commissioned a team of scholars, whatever, outreach organizers to put out a new book called The Divine Code. And it is what it is. I mean, Path to the Righteous Gentile wasn't so much different, but Divine Code's a much thicker book. They both drew from the Rambam as a source of inspiration. Much like Judaism, the Rambam serves as a benchmark in halacha for those things that aren't well known. Right? If you want to know about the Beis Hamikdash, where would you look? Rambam, because he's the only guy that really talked about it. If you want to know the halachas of Mashiach, where do you look to? Aside from goofy stuff, right? Rambam, because he's the only guy that talked about it. So, most Rishonim didn't talk about it. Most rabbi authorities, rabbinic authorities didn't talk about it. The Rambam was unique because he covered everything. That's why, the biggest reason why Mishnah Torah is such a great work. It's not so much that we love the Rambam. A lot of people can't stand the Rambam, for that matter. But he spoke about everything. So it's a unique work, at least for that. And in this field, that's a big deal, as is with all the other fields as well. So they drew from the same place of inspiration. But where they were different is really why we're here today to discuss some of these differences. It's obviously beyond the scope of one class. Chaim's book was very small, and Divine Code is very thick. What's in that thickness is really part of the controversy that I'm involved in, and with the book The World of the Ger. So I know that sounds a bit vague. Let's try to explain and understand whatever controversies and discrepancies of books and why Lazer Brody is different than his Rabbi Shalom Arush. This doesn't mean anything right this second. Just keep that burning in the back of your mind. So the books came, the new books, the new era of books came out in the 2000s. I mean, you have Amazon selling books. It's much easier to publish books. All of a sudden, there's a lot of Noahide literature coming out. Once again, Chaim was the only book for a long time. So it was a very stagnant world, slow-moving, basically kind of like a redneck Southern American, the South of America. It wasn't a chush of inyan. It was not that big of a deal. But in the 2000s, it gained momentum. Right? The church was starting to collapse more, and the religions were starting to collapse more. Israel kind of took a leg up in the news, just internet-type news and news websites. Jews became kind of in a better image, not necessarily righteous, holy image. Just Jews are much more in your face because of the internet news and these things. I mean, I know growing up in Ohio in the 90s, even as a Jew, I didn't really know what Israel was so much, from a media standpoint. Whereas today, you got to be buried in your backyard if you don't know what Israel is from the internet today. So the Jewish people are not the only ones watching that. The nations of the entire world are watching that. And even though it might sound a bit cliche to say that the nations are watching, I'm not talking about, again, from a righteous position where it's like, oh, you better be a Kiddush Hashem, the nations are watching, even though that may be true. The nations are much different than the Jewish people think they are. And their interest with us is much different than we think it is. I mean, David, I know you have experience on Facebook, just hanging around my circles, and you see it's not what you think it is. So before we even get into what it is, just know it's not what you think it is. The fact that you're a Jew, if you're sitting here today, it's not what you think it is. In light of what they think you are. They see you as a person who has received the Torah, and they are basically conquered at Sinai. And they don't know what to do. The Jewish people receive the Torah, we are to be a light to nations, and they're like waiting, literally they're waiting for us to do what we're supposed to do. And we're too busy arguing about if it's a divine code, path right to Gentile. I mean, we're so worlds apart, it really is not funny. I mean, for idiom's sake, it's not funny. And too many people are turning it into kind of a joke. Not in terms of a humor joke, but, you know, the Goyim, they learn Torah, and then they shouldn't, and it's illegal. Then, I mean, all the bickering and bantering going on, it's become a joke. And the irony is, it's not a joke in terms of what we're supposed to do with the responsibility. And that's where my book that I wrote with Chaim, my new book, comes out. That's my whole approach, is solving the riddle of the Jew and the nations. So again, let's kind of go full circle. A lot of my time when I speak, I go full circle. So to go full circle here, what started out as a light movement, let's say in the 1980s, a cute movement, we can even call it a cute movement. You know, the good Goyim, give them some Torah, blah, 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 whatever it was in the 80s. Lubavitcher Rabbi and the yeshivas around in New York at that time. As I've already said, in the 2000s it became a thing. You know, internet driven, but it became a thing. We inherited a thing, and fate caught up to us that we have now the responsibility of dealing with this thing. And I would call it a half-baked attempt in the internet era has been attempted at dealing with this responsibly, and they're coming up short. Everybody involved is coming up short because they don't understand how deep it goes. And how big the ramifications are in responsibilities. You could say, well, that's a very nice opinion, Rabbi Katz, but that's your opinion. But it's not my opinion. And that's what the world cares about. This is not my opinion. It's Chazal, it's Masorah, it's the Torah as we know it from Sinai. It's not a Chiddush. Everyone says, okay, you know, the feedback I get is, what are you saying new? I'm not saying anything new. I'm just repeating what has been said basically until World War II. I mean, I think the worst thing Hitler ever did was he made Torah go out of style. More than the deaths of Jews and everything, he really made holiness not in vogue. You know, the things that we used to do as Jews, we stopped doing. And the reinvented Judaism of post-World War II, I think now we're starting to see what came about from World War II. You know? A lot of things are great. We rebuilt Judaism. Yiddishkeit's very strong. But on the other hand, there are some flaws in what came about. And my personal opinion, I'm sure there's probably other opinions, is that Art Scroll, as great as they've done, it's created a facade in Torah, right? Because you know the translations of the words have made it concretized into something that isn't necessarily true. It's taken away, you know, opening the book and going to the commentaries to find out what is said. And Our Scroll just conveniently gives you everything there on the page. And what that has done is it's really desensitized us to learning and to our mission as Jews. Again, it's like learning on a tablet. You know, I will never ever condone learning on a tablet. If you're not flipping the pages, amiti, you know, fingers on paper, it's not the same. As an old joke, you know, God created me on two hands, one for Rashi, one for Tosfos. So, and I hold by that because it's not the same. I found in my new book, I know I'm a bit all over the place, but I'm just kind of introducing the topic. So, in my new book I wrote, I found an error in one of the sources. It was 92b, and it should have been 92a. And I found the error. Somebody sent a picture of the page, just send it through just to show me what the book looked like. 'Cause I never saw it because Amazon printed it. And I said, wow, that can't be right. That's the wrong source. And I looked it up, and it was 92A instead of 92B. And how did I know it? Because I remember in my mind, that's not what 92A looks like. And 92B is a different vision altogether. And I looked it up, and lo and behold, so you can't replace the original stuff. And the miracle about Jews and the nations is it goes back all the way. I mean, Sinai, before Sinai, and only recently in our time, this is where we went full circle in the rabbit trail, have we lost sense of this mission. You ask any Gadol pre-World War II, and they will know what the Jewish mission is. But there's not much you can do with that mission when they're all in Christianity, we're in the shtetl, right? It's pretty hard to make, so-called gerim when that's the situation. Either they're going to get killed or you're going to get killed, and we're not doing that. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe even said, we don't have writings for this genre, for one guy who escaped the village and came and was a kosher non-Jew by the Jews. It wasn't worth writing down. So it was there, but you got to dig for it. And today, it is written down in obscure places, but you have to dig. Today we don't dig. We have Art Scroll, and they claim to have dug everything for us. And on one hand they have, but until you've dug yourself, you don't really know what you're doing. And that goes for any genre also as well. With all these websites, we'll build your website for you type thinking. Well, that's great, but you don't know the first thing about making websites when you have everyone doing it for you. Whatever you want to plug that thought into. So this new era of Noahidism is really built on a cheap wisdom. It's not built on the sages. It's not built on precedent. It's not built on the tradition that we've had for thousands of years, culminating, waiting for redemption. And it's like, okay, the previous generation, like pre-2000, the last of the last. I mean, we all know we've seen a dip in Gedolim, right? You can't compare where we are today with the likes of Lubavitcher Rebbe, Moshe Feinstein, all the guys we had in the 20th century, and those Rabbanim really provided us with the last keys of Torah that we have. Because look, in the 2000s, what do we have? A bunch of Likud Sfarim. People are making great Sfarim, but they're not original works. Art Scroll makes great works, but it's just gathering a bunch of stuff and putting it together in a centralized work, which I think is great. My personal opinion is books that function as tools are even greater than the books themselves, because you can do a lot with tools. I was lost today in the base medrash at the Stiebel over there because they didn't have half the tools I'm used to. So it made learning a bit difficult. I would have appreciated to have like a dictionary, And that's what's great about this generation is the dictionaries and things like that. But to remove the Jewish people from the learning, that's where, again, I take issue that it's just not funny, because that's our bread and butter, that's our survival, and it's been removed from us. And I'm not blaming World War II, but it's like from World War II. They wanted, the idea was build Yiddishkeit fast and furious, and never again are we going to do this and that and go down. And we succeeded. We have the State of Israel, all these things, but it came at a price. The price is 99.9% of people would rather learn on a tablet than opening a Gemara. Right? You told me, the Boy Tshuva today, they don't want to sit and steig. And that I understand that, but it's not where we come from as a survival mechanism in Torah. I understand, but also on the flip side, there was no such thing as 100, 200 guys in Kollel before this generation. 3 guys in Kollel in the Rav of the town, that was your Kollel. And that's what you need to carry the Masorah tradition on for success. I'm sorry, 100 guys drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, talking about they're saving the world is not saving the world. It just isn't. Halavai that it should be, 100 guys really learning. But look, I sat in the Stiebel all day today. Okay, it was a wonderful Stiebel, and all 2 guys that were there the day. 2 guys. There's a beautiful Stiebel. 2 guys were there, and this is not just in London. This is in Sfat. It's everywhere I've been. it's a problem. And I hate to say it, I saw guys looking at their phones all day today. I would have been too if I would have had internet access, but I didn't have it. But even still, when I got to yeshiva 15 years ago, that didn't exist. There weren't even smartphones in the world. So the shtusim didn't creep in like it is now. So you see where I'm going with this. In the 2000 generation, it's a Torah generation born from a tablet. And these guys that are running a lot of these organizations expect pre-World War II results with a tablet mentality. So they're making the newest development of Noahide books, again, to kind of focus on where I'm going, thinking it's the big deal that they claim it is. It's not. By definition, it's not. You can close your eyes and say it's not. I mean, it's like saying a tablet is the greatest new font for Rashi on the tablet. I don't know. It's not going to work. It'll work to a point, but it won't work. And that's where I draw the line between where Chaim wrote the book in the 80s. And I have issue with that book. I'm not saying that's like the book. But it was written at a time when there were still a shtickle books being written. Whereas this book now, it's essentially a tablet mentality. But at the same time, the Noahide world's bursting because the technology, it's not a fair story to say that we're shvach dor and this and that. We're greater now than we've ever been for several reasons as well. Israel, technology. How am I here today? Because I met David Dome on Facebook. I mean, so you can argue all you want and make complaints, but at the same time, it does work. So it's good. It's tree of knowledge of good and bad. It has its perks and milas as well. So for the networking and meeting people, it's fantastic. In terms of authenticity and real Torah, it's pathetic. So it's a serious imbalance. And then part of the problem is on the internet you have the fake rabbi, the charlatan making buy my book, 3 easy payments, $29.95. And then it's very rare you find authenticity on the internet. And we've had this discussion many times, and they are out there. I know people who are authentic on the internet. I hope I'm one of them, but they are out there. So again, it's just more about understanding where we are as a people, what we're dealing with, the new challenges we face. And I think we have a shortage of leadership that understand how to address those issues. I'm not talking about how to solve those issues, because I think the Jewish people have always had answers of how to deal with life issues. This is not about me reinventing how we're going to handle our issues. It's more about explaining the issues to the masses, explaining what the problem is. I think word traveled around the shtetls in a much different way than it's working today. There's a breakdown in a lot of core things today. Some people say the internet's forbidden, whereas some people then say the internet is a great thing. And I had the same type of discussion in Daf Yomi 15 years ago. One of my mashpiyas in learning said, one guy could say a hot plate is the best thing you can have, like a blech on Shabbos. One guy's treif gomor. It's totally fire. So these are not new problems. These problems have always existed. Is electricity really a malacha on Shabbos? Are you doing a problem? You flip a switch? Some say yes, some say no. We poskin it is a problem. But everyone says it's the Rabbanan. It's not necessarily the crime it's made out to be. But that discussion died out a long time ago, and we handle it the way we do. It's just that the core issues of where we're at today, it just seems like machlokes is that an argument is all that it's worth. Is the internet kosher or not? I mean, that's not going to get solved. Because in my opinion, it's not worth a dime, the internet. It's treif gomor. It's just out of circumstance, people like myself and other people have to work on the internet. It's just how it is. I don't want to send snail mail, wait 20 years for a response from a student. And the Noahide world has moved into this. Again, that's why I'm focusing on that. That's where the Noahide world is. That's where the Jewish correspondence with reality even in the nations is. I'll tell you where reality is not. It's not in the shtibel that I was at all day. It used to be, but it's not anymore. The base medrash is just not the refuge it used to be. Israel's kicking people out of yeshivas and making them go to work. It's just change. Things have changed. which kick up new dirt, new dust, and a new thought process of where we're going forward. And I think that it's happened so fast, and again, not only in Judaism, but look where we're at in everyone in politics and everything. It's crazy. The internet era has taken over, and we're as much of a casualty of it as anybody else. So I'll open up for discussion in a second. So now that we've established there's these nations, and they're online, they're leaving their religions, and there's Jewish people on the internet, right? And they're hooking up, they're meeting each other, they're finding each other in strange circumstances, forums on Facebook, all kind of things, and it really it's chaos, it's tohu vavohu, there's no order to it. You could have one Jewish guy talking to another about Jewish stuff, and a non-Jew comes in and enters the situation, and then it's crazy. There's no order, there's no method, there's no logic, there's nothing. It's just and then you have half-baked attempts of tshuva movements, new types of kiruv, of reining people in, and trying to give over a Yiddishkeit that doesn't really exist in this way. I mean, let's look at Rabbi Yossi Mizrahi for a second. He claims to have made, millions or thousands, whatever, Bali Tshuva. No, he hasn't. Most of his numbers are these people, the non-Jewish ger. And I know because I talk to them, I work with them. Now, he's made a lot of Jewish Bali Tshuva, Baruch Hashem, but a lot of the numbers are not Jewish. And I know this from everybody that's online and dealing with the non-Jews have seriously inflated numbers from the non-Jews. Now, if you were to tell that to him, whether or not he would agree is another story. Whether or not he would be impressed with himself is another story. My message is it is a very good thing. And it's a very real thing. And those people are looking to him and other Rabbanim and other Mashpiyas for what to lean upon and to support themselves by. It's a beautiful thing. Where it gets confusing is when that influence then says, Goyim this, Goyim that, the Goy. It's very strange. And again, it's a strange situation. In the internet, modern era, rabbis, non-Jews, Jews interacting, so many ingredients, whereas again, before World War II, that didn't happen. It was Moishi, Shlomi, and the Rav. And they talked about lulav, estrog, and halachas of how to be a Jew. And none of the foreign elements really entered the fray. The things that we're dealing with today didn't exist. Art Scroll didn't exist. You didn't need Art Scroll. So again, to introduce the book, then the book is called The World of the Ger. Because where the story gets personal, for me at least, is that me and Chaim were friends for a good 15 years. Does this make sense where I'm going? Does it make sense? Yeah. We were friends. He had the book on his bookshelf, and he claimed to have written this book about the Noahites, and I could care less when I was a bacher. And in Sfat, I lived next door to the cave of Shem and Aver. It's a what do you call that? A tourist site where there's a cave, and they said that's where Yaakov learned Torah from Shem and Aver. And there's a synagogue on the premises called Beit Knesset Shem Aver. So when I got to Sfat, I was very interested in Shem, and he's interesting. Shem ben Noach, the son of Noah. He's all through the Masorah. There's all kinds of interesting midrashim about him, and I had like a thing for it. Just an eye to catch it in random places. So when I left Kollel, left yeshiva just to kind of get into working and teaching, I decided I was going to teach a 34-class series to the Noahites, whatever that was. There's a fellow in Sfat who was a Noahide long time, and he said, the Noahites would appreciate your work. So I started. And I taught 34 classes, which is irrelevant to this discussion. And that's when anybody that meets the nations will have this type of experience. And what is the experience? There's always the question, Rabbi, as a non-Jew, they would say, can I keep Shabbos? Right? What's the answer? I know you know the answer.
No.
Huh?
No.
Why? What's the egoy that?
It's music.
There you go. Everybody knows that.
Definitely, yeah.
A goy that keeps Shabbos is chayav misa. Everybody knows that. It's 101 in yeshiva world. But when dealing with the nations, you'll find that a little bit of honesty and integrity goes a long way. And what sounds like a kind of a, I don't know, a non-point. I mean, what do you mean honesty, integrity goes a long way? I call this the Pirkei Avos effect. I'm going to pick on you again, yeah? You've learned Pirkei Avos, right? A couple times probably, right? Is there anything in that book you have not fulfilled? Have you made yourself a Rav?
I have. I'm
Oh,
trying.
you have a Rav. Okay. Do you learn Torah?
Try.
Do you daven?
Yeah.
Do kind deeds?
I have.
Try to learn Lishma? So you've done all of Pirkei Avos. Wait a minute, yes you could.
Yeah.
Yes you could. Well, you have. In the yeshiva world, it's a culture. The yeshiva world is a culture built on, it's not a chiddush. We made a culture where it's not a chiddush. I mean, open up. The world stands on three things, you know, whatever. There's a couple different gears of that, but the yeshiva world's built on it, right? You know, peace between Talmidei Chachamim. The words of Talmidei Chachamim are like coals. Sit the dust at the feet of the sages. You can't be in yeshiva if you're not sitting at the feet of your Rosh Yeshiva. The point I'm making is, when I first went into the working world, I taught English as a second language for a little bit. My wife passed on, but when she was alive, she wanted me to teach English. So I did it as a kind of help bring Parnassa to the house. And I went as a company called Berlitz. You guys ever heard of Berlitz?
Yeah.
And it's a dodgy thing completely, but I went through training, and I was like the only, maybe even the only Jew, but at least the only religious Jew. And I'm sitting there. I mean, these were horrible people that I was in training with, you know. And I remember thinking, like, I don't want to be here. These people are horrible. This is not where I want to be. And I had a horrible experience. Just I was trying to be, you know, kadosh and in the Torah, and I had the wrong attitude. And I went home and I studied Pirkei Avos that night, and I realized I had the wrong attitude. So when you put Pirkei Avos into Derech Eretz, which is what one of the Mishnayos of Pirkei Avos, right? In Torah and Derech Eretz, in Derech Eretz, in Torah, it's a whole different world. When you put it into the reality, Pirkei Avos, it's a whole different ballgame. When it's out of the base medrash, it's out of Yiddishkeit, and it's in the real world. You can imagine how the lessons learned in Pirkei Avos matter in real life. So I saw that it became something different. It became something real. So then, once you have that established, that in reality, it's like a higher darga, it's a higher level than again drinking the coffee, smoking a cigarette in kollel, saying you're going to save the world. It's very easy to do that. It's very easy to be a Jew in the shtetl and not care about reality in the world and life, and say we're just because we're Jewish, we're blessed, and everybody else is an idolater, and it's great to be Jewish and drink coffee. But when you go into the world and meet the non-Jew head-to-head, face-to-face, the Torah begins to look different. It starts to be resoundingly different. That's what I call shedding the party line. So, again, we claim to have integrity and honesty, right? Did you ever look that up? Where does it say that a goy keeps Shabbos is chayav misa?
Well, it was in Sanhedrin.
Yeah, but where is it at halach l'maisa? Exactly. No one's ever looked it up. Like one guy out of how many has looked it up. So I thought, you know what? Be a mensch. Look it up. You know, these are nice people. You know, that was my mokshav at the time, right? Just look it up. I mean, because these were nice people, and hey, Shem, son of Noah, is great. Hey, this is amazing. And hey, Rabbi, can I keep Shabbos? You're chayav misa if you do it. Don't do it. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to tell this guy's a nice guy. I mean, how do you say, well, if you do it, I'll kill you? And so you start to figure integrity and honesty just looks a little bit different when you start throwing around chayav misa around the people that are chayav misa. Right?
What does it say?
So that's the story. I look it up. I mean, first, where do I even look it up? Right? It's probably Rambam Hilchos Malachim Perek Yod Halacha Tes, based on the Sanhedrin. You look it up, and it's there, but it's the idolater is obligated to die if he does it. But if you notice in the Ten Commandments, It says, your friend, your donkey, your slave, your this, your that, your cat, your dog, your rest on Shabbos, and the ger in your gates. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Okay. And I thought, how could this ger be the convert? No way. Ger is a Jew. A Jew keeps Shabbos. That's kind of obvious, right? You can't convert if you're not going to keep Shabbos. So I realized very quickly, I looked up some Meforshim, some commentaries, and I saw, okay, it's most likely not a Jew. This ger of the Ten Commandments. I didn't even think about where it was going to go next. But I told that guy, a good close friend of mine, to this day, not then, we just met. I said, look, I found out a ger is someone, the biblical Noahide is called ger, and the ger, keeps Shabbos, but not like a Jew. Apparently there's this Gemara in Krisis 9a that explains it, and let's continue learning the Torah Shem. And then that just became one day to the next day, the next day, the next day, that there really became two camps. Those that get it, right, get what I'm gone about the ger and Shabbat along those lines, and then those that don't get it, and they have not reconciled the two sides. And to this day, I'm involved in trying to reconcile these two sides. Now, the reconciliation is extremely simple. Everything that you've ever heard that a non-Jew cannot do, and this is, you've heard of Yura Deya, right? What is Deya?
Knowledge.
How do you identify Deya? You're learn Basar V'Chalov and Malika and all these things?
Yeah.
So how do you recognize a Deya? What is a Deya? How do you know it's a Deya? It proves itself true every time, right? If we have a day of the Rambam and the laws of kashrus, you don't talk about, right? And there's a strange case of salt, right? Big pieces of salt. And we say, what does that do for making the food kosher? Well, if it's according to this opinion, he holds that big pieces of salt don't matter, so therefore we can continue and say it's like this. If it's like the Rambam, he says it's not called salt, it's called meat. And whatever it is, it's a consistent line of reasoning, and it holds water no matter what. For example, the Rambam in Kashrut, no matter what you find in the world, the rabbis will always be able to uphold the sheet of the path of the Rambam in Kashrut. You'll never be able to say, you stumped the Rambam. Because his day is bigger than he is. He has a day. It's a true path. It doesn't mean we have to posture like the Rambam. It just means he can answer up whatever question you have. Right? And then whatever other rabbinic authority there is in kashrus, for example. Right? Or for example, we talk about the light switch on Shabbos. For those that say that it's aish, it's fire, that line of reasoning will always hold water. And then the poskim obviously go where they need to go. How do I get to Deya? 1 second. What was I talking about the Deya?
Reconciling.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. So it turns out ger is a Deya issue. There are two paths you can take, and this is 10 times out of 10, 100 out of 100. It's a Deya. It holds water. Every forbidden issue, what really is Inyan for the non-Jew, is Akum or Goy. The idolater, Akum. He's the guy who loves Yeshu, and if he's going to learn Torah, it means he's sneaking into your synagogue and he's doing something very low beseder. For every merit the non-Jew has, it will be under the terminology of such as Ger Toshav, Ger Tzedek, which sometimes can be a non-Jew, Chasid Omus Olam, the pious of the nations. And you can bank on that. It holds up. So whenever you have a Goy that keeps Shabbos is Chayav Misa, Goy, Akum. When you have, for example, in the Talmud, it says the non-Jew keeps Shabbos, but not like a Jew. They do malacha. Either like holiday, Yom Tov, or Chol Moed, or just by saying Shabbat Shalom. Those distinctions are always there. They're never not there. So whenever people have a kasha, or a challenge, and they think like, oh, I got him now. That's ridiculous. That's like trying to look up the Rambam in your day. You're not going to do it. That's like the guy in yeshiva who thinks he's going to ask the brilliant question. He gets knocked down by the Magi shiur every time. Right? And that's what happens with Ger. It's like, it's to the point now where I can answer questions with my eyes closed. Right? Rabbi Katz is wrong because he says a non-Jew can keep Shabbos like a Jew. All right, you just lost. Thank you. Right? You didn't listen to a word I said. No one ever said keeping it like a Jew. Right? You did not hear what I said. You did not listen. You didn't look it up. What are you doing? So that's what I'm saying. It takes a little bit of honesty and integrity to admit you heard it, to try to hear it. If you didn't hear it wrong, admit you didn't hear it right. Just like any other shiur in yeshiva. Every Baal Tshuva that gets beat up by the Magi shiurs because they wanted to plug in their own thoughts and ideas when it didn't fit, and then they realized the Torah knows better than you. The Torah just does. If you want to play by the rules of the Torah. And the non-Jew does want to play by the rules of the Torah. The kosher non-Jew does want to play by the rules. That's what they've realized. They left behind their shtuskite, and they want something true. They're tired of the lies. They also, they have their lies they inherited. They want God. They want the God of Israel, whatever they want to call it. So the book details that entity, that person, that thing. In the Chumash, it's called the Ger. In the Tanakh, to the tune of almost 100 times, it mentions Ger. And there's also a couple of synonyms also. We mentioned like the pious from the nations. One of my favorites is the Nilva, right? Which means attachment, he who attaches onto you. In Isaiah 14:1 it brings that one, and also Isaiah 56, chapter 56, verses 3 and 6. There's a lot of these little words, and they're words that Jews don't know because it just doesn't come on our radar. How often do we speak in terms of Ger and Ger Toshav and Nilva and Chasidei Omos Ha'olam, and it's just not us. We talk about Chetzi Nezek Kana, Shor Tam, Shor Muad, very yeshivish type of things, and we're Jews, and thank God, and they're non-Jews, and thank God. When these worlds collide in this world that we're in, this internet goofy world, you can imagine how complicated it is now. Right? You have 25 rabbis thinking Akum, Akum, Akum. You have a couple of rabbis going like Ger, Ger, Ger. And you have a couple of non-kosher non-Jews and a couple of kosher non-Jews, and they all get together in a Facebook forum and they all have a conversation. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And you already can't convey things clearly on Facebook, so it's a further nightmare. So again, just kind of oscillate back to the book. What the book does is it ends the charade. It totally disregards Art Scroll in terms of this. And why the famous one is Parshas Rei, right? You give the nevela to the ger in your gate. Can that be a Jew? I'm asking you.
What do you mean?
Can you give the nevela to a ger Jew?
No.
No. So it cannot be a convert. No way. So no. How? What is the shtus? Everyone says a ger is always a convert. Really? Tell me how that works out for you, giving your dead carcass of an animal to a Jew and tell him to bon appetit. Doesn't work. Besides the fact that the language is ger in your gate, that is like the Ramban says that is the thing for non-Jew, ger in your gate. Can't be a Jew. And so then they'll say, but the Jubilee, you have to wait until the time of the Jubilee in order for there to be a ger. Really? Did you learn a Shulchan Aruch on that? Shulchan Aruch says, Dafka, the pasuk says, give it to the ger first. Okay, if you don't find a ger, you sell it to the idolater, also called the Nachri. It's a halacha for our time. So there's so many party lines swimming around, it hurts. Yeah, there's a thing about the ger in the time of the Jubilee. Well, duh. Everyone knows that, so to speak, that knows this portion. But you're treating it like a party line, and it just upsets people. It creates a lot of confusion, and it's not true. And there's a lot of painful party lines that are simply not true. I mean, every Bold Tshuva goes through this as well. I mean, you probably heard your set of party lines, you know? Can't think of any offhand. Part of my work that I do is, that's why I brought this book here. This is called Otzer HaMazel. This is a fantastic book. This is a likud. It's a gathering of different, everything that Chazal spoke about Mazel. So what's the party line? But Jews don't believe in Mazel, right? So are you saying you do an Avera every time you say Mazel Tov? Right? Don't say Mazel Tov ever again. It's a sin. You can't. I mean, seriously, where do people come across with it? So what did they say? What is said is astrology is so-called forbidden, and we're not to do astrology. Even that's not true, but I'll throw you a bone and say it is true, because I'm not so into treif and non-kosher astrology. But the question in the Talmud isn't whether or not we hold by astrology, right? It's the question is, granted that you have mazel, can you change it or not? Ein mazel Yisrael, yesh mazel Yisrael. And once you acknowledge the question, mazel becomes a fantastic thing. Are you set in your ways, or can you change your ways? And if you can change your ways, how do you change your ways? So I'm actually surprised I haven't fought more wars on this whole mazel thing. So at the very beginning I did. And it's a party line syndrome. The Kabbalah speaks a lot about mazel. It has nothing to do with astrology. It comes from the word nazel, like flow, like the divine influence that comes into this creation. And our job is to connect to that. It's how Hashem gets you your shefa, which is the antithesis of avodah zarah, idolatry. And so for the non-Jews, all the more so, they need to know this. Because the Yeshu is really the substitute of mazel. It's receiving influence from lower levels of whatever. And Jews have fallen victim to this a lot. Not Yeshu, but just, clockwork, punch in, punch out. Get my paycheck 9 to 5. That's really not how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to receive from Hashem and be able to work with God in creation. The more you rely on a paycheck and just a rut of life, you're leaving the Eibishter out of the equation. And that's really namely why we're in exile, really. The biggest reason is we've lost that connection. And then what really makes concrete those severed ties are the party line mentalities. So art school is great. I mean, look, I use it to learn. Everyone should. But once you are divorced from the original, I mean, I remember in yeshiva, it's like, the Baal Tshuva has been there like 3 months. Like, well, the Rif says opposite, Rabbi. Oh, I'm sure you're bucking the Rif. I should collect you. I'm sure your mom is, Yeah, they bring you everything. It's great. It's nice. But you're supposed to look it up from there. You're not supposed to just rely on that and say, you know Shas because you read a page of art scroll. There's a lot riding on the truth. A lot. Right? Once you lock into the learning on the tablet and the art scroll and the carcass that goes to the ger, and who cares if it's a convert or not? I don't care. Who cares? Once you start getting in the who cares mentality, you're just cut off. You're cut off. Not Kari's cut off, but you're cut off from reality. You're cut off from the real thing. And again, it goes back to drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes in yeshiva. That's really what it amounts to. Because it used to be Jews are part of reality. We learned in the Talmud, this Rabbi, whoever it was, Rabbi Kiva, and all these guys, talking with the Roman generals and stuff about just representing Am Yisrael to the world. That was it used to be a Jewish thing. And nowadays, we seem to be more interested in the party line and in retreating from reality than embracing reality. And when we do embrace reality, it's not from a position of we have the emes. It's from a position of we have the party line. And that's unacceptable. Because it's unacceptable. It doesn't work. Or if you show up an hour late to work, do you need to be explained to why that's unacceptable? No, it's unacceptable. You know better. And we're so far from this, we don't even know better. We just don't know. Now that's also not our fault. These are things that are just not learned. It's just not common. Who knows about Ger Toshav? Who knows about Mazel? Who knows about... there's a lot of things. Nazir. I always say, what happens if a Nazirite community were to resurrect one day, you know, if like a bunch of long-haired, non-wine drinking people, like we have a lot of work to do. We got to go back and learn the Tractate of Nazir and figure out what to do. The first dinosaur to wake up was the Ger Toshav. Why? Ask God. I don't know. But the Ger Toshav woke up. They're here today. I mean, it was a steady progression. As I said, the books in the 80s helped develop it.
Can you explain what Ger Toshav is precisely?
Ger Toshav is the appropriate term for Noahide in the Talmud that comes with a certain set of laws, connotations, historical nomenclature. It is not the same as Ger. There's a lot of subtle distinctions. On one hand, you can say it is the same as Ger. One is Talmudic, one is biblical. The biblical is just Ger. The Talmud, the Chumash, not once uses Ger Toshav. Not once. Only Ger. Only Ger. Ger Tzedek is also, do you know that? Ger Tzedek does not appear once in the Chumash. It's not a true term. At all. Purely Talmudic. Now, that's not to reduce what the Talmud is doing. We're just saying one is an oral Torah Inyan, one is not. And when it goes into the oral Torah, it's not a concrete thing like, oh, this is a Ger Toshav, this is a Ger Tzedek. The Talmud uses it like woo, 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 I mean, just all over the place. There's like 20 different types of Ger Toshav and 20 different types of Ger Tzedek. It's one of those things that makes you scratch your head and pull your hair out and ask why the rabbi's doing this. It makes no sense. You know, one Ger Toshav in the Talmud is an idolater. The other one is a Noahide, and the other one is like practically one step from converting. One is starting to convert, one was going to convert and didn't convert. And it's like, what? So how do you know? Well, the Torah demands for you to open the books, open your noggin, read a little bit, think a little bit, weigh it out, and learn it. But if you're going to read it in an art scroll, you're not going to get it.
That's cool.
Yeah, you're not going to get it. But try learning anything in art scroll. You know, you came to classes a couple of those times. I can now. I got to the point where I can show you, if I want to be a real stickler, okay, every shot of art scroll is wrong. Every single one. Now that's not on one hand that's a bombastic thing to say. On the other hand, it's pretty normal. Because if anybody that knows the real Eon learning, like real in-depth learning, there is no shot. There's no such thing as understanding anything on a one linear way. You know, you cannot say, oh, I learned the shot in this Talmud, I know what it means. Well, it has at least 20 billion meanings. What do you mean you know the one thing? By definition, it doesn't mean one thing.
It has helped to bring a lot of people back.
It has. And it's a good tool. But once you start to focus on, this is what it means, no, it is not what it means. You know?
How does one know about it?
That's the problem. That is the problem. I mean, I forget if you were in class or not, but we learned one night a Ger verse, right? And the Rashi was saying, like, over here in a previous verse, it was a rich guy, you don't pervert judgment by the rich guy or whatever it was.
I was there.
Yeah? And then over here, by our verse, it was a poor guy. And like the whole thrust of Rashi was to say, there was a rich, and here it was a poor guy. What does our scroll say? By this verse, it was a rich guy and a poor guy. You just missed the entire point of Rashi. Now, it's a very subtle point. So on one hand, you can say, you're splitting hairs, who cares? On the other hand, well, you just ignored the whole point of Rashi. What Rashi's telling you is it's not this and that together, and our scroll says it is that and that together. So, pick your poison, why you want to learn it, what you hope to get out of it. My point is, don't call it Divrei Elokim Chaim, because it isn't. Don't make drastic conclusions from it, because it isn't. Don't assume you know anything from it, because you don't. But getting inside, researching, getting a translation, getting a grasp for it, 100%. But it does take some common sense to navigate that field.
Maybe there are only a certain type of person that can evolve in that kind of searching and looking. Not everybody.
Two guys were meant to be in Kolo, and then in the shtetl. That's the bottom line. But what's the problem? Is the non-Jew, and this is the good point you're bringing up. The non-Jew, the ger, his existence depends on you to get it. How crazy is that? That's how Hashem made the bria. His existence depends on you to see through the art scroll Rashi. So as a Jew, you say, who cares? I got it. It's good enough. As a non-Jew, he's saying, but that difference means I don't exist. So it's either you learn it shvach, the way you want to learn it, or I don't exist. A goy to keep Shabbos is chayav misa. Every art scroll on the planet will tell you that. Every art scroll thinking will tell you that. And justifiably so. It's half true. But at the same time, as long as you're diddle-daddling with that, he's over there being told he's going to be killed. And he cannot progress beyond the 7 laws. He's being called nasty names. You're transgressing, don't taunt the ger. You're not fulfilling love the ger. That's on you. You don't have to do those mitzvahs. But what about him? You don't have to love the ger. You can say, that's not my mitzvah. I'm not into loving people. You can taunt him and say, I'll settle the score with Hashem and Shemayim. It's my business. You have that right. I'm not going to tell you, everyone does Averas, okay? I'm not going to be the kosher police and say, why are you doing this, why are you doing that? But the nafkamina here is he's taking it over the head because we're not doing what we got to do. That's the whole thrust of this. Again, that's the goofiness on Facebook. This guy's saying it's a goy, he can't do it. This guy says, but he's a nice guy. And all this stuff. Meanwhile, it creates a stagnant Judaism. You're wasting your time drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, saving the world that way, doing Bintul Torah, doing your Pirkei Avos as you know it to be, while this guy's being told if he moves an inch, he's going to be chayav misa. As if you're prepared to go ISIS on the guy, And you're not prepared, and he's not prepared. It's stupid, on one hand. And a waste of time. So you can see how it's kind of like a chulent of everything. On one hand, it's a waste of time. On one hand, it's beautiful. On one hand, it's annoying. On one hand, it's complicated. On one hand, it's everything. And so the book really sets the story straight, or it begins to. The first chapter is, explaining why the name change is essential. First of all, Noahide is an English made-up word. I know you guys love your English. I read the Oxford Encyclopedia of the English Language. I have much insight to you guys. It's a fascinating study where English comes from. It's actually I flew in looking out the window. It's made me think about what I learned. That the politics of anything go by the language. So you guys know what's his name? The 1700s. For his name. The guy who made the first dictionary, what's his name? You know this? I got the app on my phone. There was English when I don't know how well you know the history of English.
Old English is very different.
Well, yeah. So they showed the development of English through the generations.
Yeah.
Like for example, the S in the word island doesn't need to be there. They just kept it because they didn't want to get rid of it. I forget the guy's name,
well,
but
fairy tales.
It's Chaucer.
Chaucer.
He did like Chaucer's earlier.
yeah. So, but there was wars over English in the 1700s. Wars in the lexicology.
1700s.
Yeah. In the 1700s, they really congealed into what it is today. In the 1800s,
Well, it's a
developed.
mixture of French. It's
A lot of
Latin,
two things made English the language it is more than any other thing: Shakespeare and the Bible. And half the words of Shakespeare didn't remain in the language. So they give a list of the Shakespearean words.
The Norman Conquest gave us a lot of French words.
Also, yeah, that's right.
A lot of French.
That's right. So, but the politics and war go together around language. So Noahide is a non-word. It's just a non-word. It was made up in the 1960s. It's not a real thing. Even Ben Noach is not even a biblical thing. Like when we say Ben Noach, we're not talking Ham, Yafis, and Shem. We're not talking about that.
Well, it means according to the level of Noah, I suppose.
Not really. You would like to think so, but Noah's the least relevant person in this whole story.
But that's because they have to do what's least relevant. They have to do a certain amount, but not necessarily all of it.
Who?
The Noahide Jews. The Noahides are not Jews, are they? Noahide?
Not Jews.
No.
But Noahide law really doesn't have much to do with Noah. I mean, the seventh law was given to him. 6 were given to Adam. Right? So already 6 were given to Adam. And then the 7th was given to Noah. And when they got off the boat, they established Noahide law. But very quickly you had a different, you had Ger. Right? 400 years after Shem was teaching Torah, Abraham came. Was Abraham a Jew?
No.
No. Not a Jew. He was a Noahide.
Yisrael also wasn't a Jew.
Who, Yisro?
Yeah.
Not a convert. He was a Ger Toshav. Ger.
But
Yeah.
no one told him if you keep Shabbos, you're
That's, they would today, though, ironically. The crazy part about Jethro that throws everybody off. Again, it's a shtickle art scroll syndrome. And I will think about who that guy was in the 1700s.
John Simpson.
Huh?
John Simpson.
No.
Edmund Weiner,
No.
Oh, I don't know.
James Murray.
No, who was
In Oxford Dictionary, you said.
No, he wrote the I have it on my phone. I have an ad.
Go back to Jethro. Go on.
Oh, don't worry.
What was his name?
Okay. He wrote, I thought it was the first.
Doctor
Pete?
Wait.
Samuel Pete?
Johnson.
Johnson.
Samuel Johnson.
Samuel Johnson, yeah.
Johnson.
He was 17.
Yeah. He saved the English language. He saved the English language. He put together it's a fantastic lexicon. Anyways, I think maybe the biggest pagam in all of this discussion, that to me, it's the biggest hero that I've found in my research. The language lehit gayer, to become ger. I've found it. Again, it's like, we're always trying to find like the source that proves the ger, right? To me, the most clearly identifiable thing for this second, we'll call it a thing, that proves the entire premise, historically, contemporary, everything, is the word lehit gayer. Does not necessarily mean become a convert. It could also mean become ger. Lehit gayer. Become ger. The Rashba comment, the Rishon, the Rashba says it explicitly. We're not talking a little bit and like, he says explicitly.
But it's a stranger. The ger means a stranger.
Yeah. So it can either be you are lehit gayer to become a convert, which in Talmudic terms is called ger gamor. You finished your gerkeit. You did it. Another one's called ksat gerus. A little bit of ger. I came back a little bit. So lehit gayer means you became ger. Now, there's a billion kinds of ger. Which kind of ger did you become? You became, for all intents and purposes, a partial ger or a complete ger, which means now you're a Jew. Jethro, what does our school say? Lehit gayer. Nowhere does it say he converted. Just says lehit gayer.
And I always thought he became Jewish.
No, didn't become Jewish. And so then you say, but okay, maybe he became a ger. Lehit gayer means he became a ger, a convert. Where does it say he became a convert?
But Chosen Moshe was the father-in-law Moshe.
Okay.
But he took on all the mitzvahs, his name, gematria of his name.
606. Yeah.
And he was there for the Sarasate roast next year.
Yeah. The thing with Jethro, nowhere does it say he became a Jew. What it does say in the Talmud is what kind of offering did he bring? Like it's in the verse. It sounds he brought it as zvachim, zevach, l'Hashem. So the Talmud asks, did he bring an olah, which is generally a non-Jewish offering? Even today they can bring an olah, or did he bring a shlamim, which is traditionally a Jewish offering? But they only ask that according to what can a ben Noach bring, an olah or a shlamim, and they bring Jethro to prove what the bnei Noach can bring. Nowhere does it say he converted. Now, by the laws of Torah, you can argue the point. You can argue the point he converted. You can art scroll it no matter what you want to do. You can say every gear in the world's convert if you want to. It's just not true. You can say every ger in the world is not a convert, which is also not true. The Malbim commentary lays it out very clearly. You have to take the context of every verse in the Torah of ger, and there are rules of dikduk and darshaning of how to figure it out. And the Malbim actually lays down those rules. I mean, if we're going to throw Talmudics out the window, let's just throw out the window and eat treif. If we're going to do that. Yeah.
You tried all the other religions out first.
What's that?
You tried all the other religions out first.
Who? Jethro. Right. Right. And when you look into the life of Jethro, and especially in Kabbalah things, and also here, I mean, that we were supposed to do this tonight, we didn't do it. But in Rabbi Nachman, he makes it very clear that Jethro, non-Jewish ger, and there's a lot of gerim in Tanakh that are this way. Rachav, the wife of Yoshua, not a Jew. So, Adam Sandler has a song, about the Jew, the Hanukkah Jew. So I have this is the not a Jew.
O.J. Simpson.
Not a Jew. So there's a lot of them.
Russ.
Huh?
Russ.
Not a Jew. Not a Jew. Ger. When you look in the pasuk, it says that she washed away the avodah zarah, right? And then you'll say, how did she marry Boaz? So a ger. This is in the Midrash Rabbah that brings this down as one of the sources, but it's the Yafta Toar mitzvah, the captive woman of war. She does not convert. That is a ger woman. Now, we don't pasuk this today, obviously, but historically it was done. But the problem with it is it goes two ways. If you were a Jewish man and to take a ger woman, if you don't pull that off correctly, out of absolute righteousness, much like Lot and his daughters, we all know about Lot and his daughters. If that doesn't go right, it really doesn't go right. So the nations took on themselves, we don't do that, right? Also the Yafat Toar. If it goes right, which the tribe of Yehuda did a lot until David Melech. That was a thing, Yehuda and Tamar. Tamar was the daughter of Shem. So it was done. When it goes wrong, welcome yourself to Avshalom. Gog v'Magog, the David Melech. You get the Sorah Morah child. That's what the Gemara Sanhedrin says that.
What about Bas Para? She was also not
Ger. A lot of the women are ger women. There wasn't an Indian to convert. Just wasn't an Indian.
So how would her children be Jewish?
The Gemara, the Midrash Rabbah explains the children are Jewish. She makes her womb kadosh that produces a Jewish child. But if it goes wrong and you're doing it from lustful desires, you just got a wayward child in your hands.
So we learn out all the halachas of.
You can learn out all the halachas of ger from ger. That's the Ramban on Yisro. That's the Ramban on Yisro. All conversion halachas you can learn from ger. And we do learn it out from ger. It doesn't mean that they were ger. Convert ger.
Wasn't he allowed in the House of Glory?
What's it say?
Yes, right, yes, right.
There were gerim in the Sanhedrin in Bais Rishon. That's the Midrash says explicitly.